Hey, how's it going? My name is Don Godey, or maybe I should start out by saying, hi, how are you? Anyway, I made a promise to Daniel Johnston over 20 years ago that I would be the president of his fan club someday. Well, as we know, there really aren't fan clubs anymore, so I decided to create a podcast instead, and I'm calling it Bloody Rainbow. My intention is simply to celebrate and honor his life by sharing his art and music through stories and interviews. In episode 10, I interview Ireland's beloved Jerry Fish, and I talk about his brilliant album of Daniel Johnston songs. So we're going to start with Jerry Fish, and this is your album, Dreaming of Daniel, featuring MayKay. And I obviously got really jacked up on this album, and I invited you to come on to my podcast of Bloody Rainbow. So that's how we're starting. So that's how I discovered you through your music, was covering Daniel's music. And then I saw you did this amazing record, and then you were kind enough to send me one. So there's your introduction, Jerry.
Thank you very much. Very proud, a very proud piece of work. And the artwork is actually another massive Daniel Johnston fan. There's a guy from Barcelona called Ricardo Cavallo. Ricardo has done this graphic novel all about Daniel, so I discovered this online and all these amazing imagery of Daniel all over the place. And I contacted Ricardo and asked him would he do the artwork for the album, and it's fantastic, you know. So, you know, I run a circus in my spare time, so it has the kind of circus theme, I guess, with the cover.
Well, and he obviously incorporated some of your imagery, your iconic mustache.
4 eyes and the iconic mustache. Yeah.
Well, and I have to say, I'm gonna kind of talk everybody through. We're gonna open this up. I'm sure you're a vinyl guy. I'm a vinyl guy. We grew up listening to records. So many things I want to talk about, but I wanted to tell you right off the bat, no pun intended, right off the fly eye, the fact that we have a fly eye here at your third eye center, and then we've got a fly, or actually this looks more like a dead dog's eyeball to me here. But do you know the story of the eyes?
I don't actually know. I don't actually know. You could tell. You could educate me there, Don.
I promise we're going to make this about you, but I'm just going to tell you a quick story. So Daniel's first word was I.
Okay.
And yeah, his first word was I, and it wasn't. We don't necessarily think it was I as in I, me. It was in eye. He was always obsessed with eyeballs. So eyeballs followed him in his whole life. And he created his own mythology around the eye. And the dead dog's eyeball came in high school. And it became his moniker. And he put the dead dog's eyeball everywhere he went. It might have even started in late junior high. But what I'm excited about is the fact that it's here, which is really great, because this is the fly eye. And the fly eye was many things to Daniel. But the one thing was, it followed him everywhere he went. And 1 minute it would be following him around and seeing all the good he was doing, but then he would also say sometimes it was like keeping an eye on, like keeping him out of trouble, because it was almost, he told me, I shit you not, he told me that he thought it was recording everything he ever did, was the fly eye recorded everything he did. And I just love that you guys have put the fly eye here. And then this is, I don't know if he took that, it looks like dead dog's eyeball, but we can talk about that later. Let me jump in here. Let me pop into the record so we can stay on track here, because I have got a chance to listen to this record. You obviously made this record, but for people that are listening and watching, this is going to be a very visual show. So I just wanted to kind of, you've got a matte black, beautiful matte finish here. And then, of course, you've used the imagery that we talked about on the cover as the, on each side. Oh, it's gorgeous. I love how you chose a matte finish, too.
Yeah, no, it's great. We're very, very proud of it, yeah. It looks great on the TV as well, I have to say, Don.
Well, and then we've got Electric Sideshow here. So tell us a little bit about Electric Sideshow.
Well, Electric Sideshow is basically, that's my circus. I run a festival, I run a big fringe stage at a festival, our biggest festival here in Ireland, Electric Picnic. And I dropped out of recording music and haven't made an actual album in about 15 years. So for the last 5 years, I've been running Hi How Are You Day since Daniel's passing in 2019. So since 2020. So this is basically, I guess, a product from those shows. We enjoyed playing the song so much. I thought, this is a great opportunity to get back into the studio and make another record.
So Screech, we got to put the brakes on for just a second on this because you just mentioned the word circus. And you know about Daniel and his whole story about the carnival.
No, you know what's wonderful? I think Daniel Johnston is such a character that you'll endlessly be discovering.
If I was a circus man, then I'd be a circus man. Only you could understand. All my life.
Fair enough. And we don't need to go down the carnival road right now, but I think it's an interesting parallel that I'd like to talk about. So let's go back a little bit. One of my favorite questions to ask people that I'm interviewing about Daniel. I bet you remember your first Daniel Johnston song.
I think it would be Story of an Artist. I think Story of an Artist just kind of hit me on a personal note, and I've been performing it for the last, I don't know, maybe 15 years or over a dozen years anyway.
Listen up and I'll tell a story about an artist growing old. Some would try for fame and glory, others aren't so bold.
I actually saw Daniel perform in Dublin in Vicar Street here. And then hearing him sing it, I thought, my wife actually said, you've got to sing that song. Because, it's a story. I think Daniel's just so honest that he kind of affects us all. I think you do get, he kind of explains the story for all of us. I think we're all, it's actually not an easy job to do, nobody really wants you to do it. There is no financial security. It is kind of a really crazy thing to do, but can we help it? I don't think we can,
I think you're exactly right. And I want to say that's kind of out of the gates on this record. I want to tell you, I was a little nervous when I first heard the record because you did such a remarkable job of Story of an Artist. And it was so heartfelt and so just amazing. And it gave me the goosebumps. I was worried that you weren't going to be able to keep it up for the whole, because what you hit coming out of the gate on a record, you got to, you raise, it's like a bar to me anyway as an album listener. Because this is an album, man. I just want to be really clear to everybody out there listening. This is an album like the kind that we were raised with, where, you want to lay down, put on the headphones, and you want to listen to this thing from Story of an Artist, and you end up with True Love Will Find You in the End. And I almost felt like I didn't do it a justice listening to it originally on Spotify. And, so I can't even tell you how excited I am about putting this on the record player and putting the needle down. And I'll have a whole nother experience with it, right?
There's definitely two separate sides. I think we went out and recorded all these songs, but the first side is kind of quite slow songs. We've got Peekaboo and Living Life, and so it has and ends with Some Things Last a Long Time with MayKay. So there's both a female singer and a male singer on it, and I also thought that was important. I'm a big fan of those Tarantino soundtracks where kind of there's a bit of a mix. So to me, this record, it's definitely an Americana. It's become an Americana kind of sounding record, I think.
Absolutely.
And it's like, oh brother, where art thou? Or some kind of, I don't know. I can imagine it a show actually. I think it's a lot of Daniel's they're show tunes. Some of them, they're incredible.
That's why I said Cabaret. I think when you'd asked me about a quote, and I was sitting there like, oh my goodness, like how would I describe this record?
Don't let the sun go
Respect love of the heart over lust of the flesh. Do yourself a favor, become your own savior. Don't let the
you know, when we're talking about it, people haven't heard it yet, but I think Cabaret is great. I think it's very carnivalesque or circus. I don't know what the right word would be, but it's very, without it being it's not chaotic. Every song has a nice beginning and a nice end. And
I've heard so many people cover Daniel, and that everybody throws a little bit of weirdness in, or a bit of kind of distortion, or it all goes a bit crazy, which is fine, and I can understand that. But this, we kind of just took the songs and treated them as songs, and kind of from start to finish, kind of, you know, let you know, praise the song basically, you know, and there's so much fun to perform. We've amazing string arrangements on it as well, which kind of, I think, lifted the record into another realm again, you know.
don't decide, I know you will. Don't give up until true love will find you in the end.
they sound real to me. So they are absolutely 100% real.
Yeah, a 14-piece orchestra, arranged by my co-producer, Cian Boylan, who has a studio here in Dublin. So, I mean, probably the record has got some of the finest jazz musicians we have in Ireland on it. You know, but you know, people kind of say jazz musicians as if, you know, I think most of the best pop records we have in the world, there's jazz players all over them. You know, they're just fabulous musicians. You know, we have a great drummer there, Darren Beckett, and it was an incredible group of people. We played Hi How Are You Day the night before, so we went straight into the studio after the gig, so it was perfect, you know. And then the overdubs came, you know. Yeah. So they're live performances, yeah, live vocals, live everything, you know.
I can feel it. I can feel the live recording. I was going to ask you that. I'm glad you said that. It definitely feels like a live recording. While we're talking about it, because this will be out January 22nd, are you planning on doing the album from beginning to end on January 22nd, 2025?
You know, we have performed at the album launch. I did a secret album launch, but we performed it from start to finish, and that is an incredible experience. I would love to, because I do quite a lot of work with the orchestras here in Ireland, and I would love to perform it with an orchestra. I don't think we'll get to do that on Hi How Are You Day, because the way we run it's in Dublin is we give everybody, we give a lot of, we bring in a lot of special guests, and they perform. But we've had CMAT, Glenn Hansard has come along, you know. We bring kind of very well-known artists and kind of up-and-coming artists, and they all do Daniel Johnston songs. So that I don't know if we'll get to perform the whole album in one thing. We'd be hogging the stage, you know. But I certainly will do that at some point with streams.
Well, you let me know, because I'd like to come.
Oh, I think I'll have to
give me enough
that.
Notice. I love Ireland.
I'll send you a ticket, yeah.
And we have a dream to come over. A bunch of us want to come over and do like a Daniel Johnston and Friends tour, where we don't necessarily feel like we want to do like big shows and big gigs as much as we want to just pop around and do some small intimate settings, but make them sing-alongs.
Well, they are. I mean, for us, it's quite. You know, we've been doing, as I said, this will be our 5th year. I know COVID knocked one of them out, which was really, you know, I'm quite passionate about things once I get stuck into them, and I was really that was the only thing I really missed in COVID. It was the only gig I actually missed. I didn't mind taking the time off, to be honest, but yeah, it's a very special night, because you know, you don't want to forget a lyric, because everyone in the audience is a Daniel Johnston fan and they know all the words. So it's an incredible there. And you know, people aren't. It's not even our fans. We're all fans of Daniel. So when you've got the performers and the fans, the performers and the audience, all fans of the one artist, it's a special, very special gig, you know.
Well, let's jump back to the record a little bit as far as some of your song choices, because as I'm sure you have figured out, Daniel has a very, very prolific catalog. I think my list right now that I'm working on is like 30 records that I'm trying to in various capacities, get them out to the fans. And so you mentioned Story of an Artist was the first song you ever heard, and it happens to also be the first song that you're putting on the record. But I'm assuming you know a lot more songs than just these on the record. Were there some that, like, did they have to work with the musicians? Was there anything that you started and it just didn't work? I mean, tell us a little bit about how you chose what you chose, because you've got a nice array, a nice contrast here. You've got so many different songs from so many different albums and cassettes and things. So yeah, talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, Story of an Artist was probably the obvious opening track, because I mean that says what, you know, who we are and what Daniel is. And then Peekaboo, I think, is really kind of, it's almost Daniel giving you his, you know, stripping it bare and giving you his life story. And it's such a, you know, I have to live these songs forever. So it's just, you know, so I'm actually probably, that's one song I find even difficult to perform or listen to without a tear, you know, but it's because it's so gut-wrenching. And then
Junior high, lost my mind. I don't know why, it's a terrible thing. Since that day, it's been a struggle, trying to make sense out of scrambled eggs.
And then I just continued. The Sun Shines Down on Me is maybe a little bit more hopeful, and that. So I went into there. I think actually in between that, MayKay does Living Life, and again it sounds like a '70s record. I don't know how, but it just kind of, we were sitting in the studio mixing it, and it felt like, you know, bits of Fleetwood Mac or something, you know, and just very '70s, and. We ended up with quite a retro record.
This is life. Everything's alright. Living life.
Retro record. And then MayKay finishes with Some Things Last a Long Time. Keane did an amazing string arrangement on that. And so the first side is very much a mellow side, you know. It's and he, you know, Daniel's such a great storyteller, I think. It's really a record you get to kind of sit down and listen to lyrics, you know. I think that's the thing, as well as there's wonderful music on it, but the lyrics are so...
What made you decide to bring a woman singer onto the record?
Well, MayKay, MayKay, I call her Ireland's Karen O. You know, she's quite a punk personality. She was in a band called Fight Like Apes. She's a real warrior being, you know, and so her energy was very important. She's been there since the very beginning with How Are You Day, with running that with me for the last 5 years. So, yeah, I also think it's quite important to have a female perspective on a song. I think it just, you know, I mean, my wife says Some Things Last a Long Time is a woman's song, actually. You know, it is a woman's song.
Time comes and goes, but all the while I still think of you.
I think Daniel had... as well, the lyrical kind of capacity to kind of not genderize maybe feelings, you know. So you know, you can hear that, and so I think it's important to have that contrast of a male singer, female singer, and making some of them duets was so much fun. It's just so much more fun, and also I have quite a low, deep voice. Daniel has a kind of high screechy voice. We have the opposite voices, you know.
Well, so I have to ask though, because Kathy McCarty is a good friend of mine, and she's been a long part of Daniel's history, and she broke through. You know, she did a whole record. Did you and MayKay listen to Dead Dog's Eyeball?
No, I didn't. I kind of didn't listen. Obviously, I've heard the Tom Waits. You know, I'm a big Tom Waits fan, so I've heard Beck, and I've heard, you know, I've heard Lana Del Rey, and I've heard lots of very famous people do Daniel songs, but I didn't delve into that because it would have only kind of got in the way, you know. But I have since listened to Kathy's record, and I didn't even know there was a female version of Living Life. No, it's great, and I think the lyric just suits a woman's voice too. You know, I think it's really, you know, I'm very proud of this record, and I'm actually honoured to be speaking to kind of, you know, the hub of Daniel's fan base. I mean, that to me is, you know, I can rest easy now. I've done the job, you know. Because I mean, it's very difficult to make an album. I mean, I've been in the music business 40 years, and you know, it takes a lot of your time. It takes a lot of your energy, and also, I guess, producing it yourself as an independent label, and then trying to get people to notice it, or people, you know, it's becoming extremely more difficult as well. I started making records in the 90s. When it was very different, when we were touring to sell records. Now we're kind of putting out records to tour, right? It's completely up on its head. So I know you said to me that Daniel would have loved to have made records with like this type of production, a big production, rather than, but I kind of envy him, to be honest. I would have liked to have just put stuff out and, you know, let it be. You know, I think it's become a difficult time to get noticed, I guess. You know, you kind of you put so much work into something, and then I guess with streaming and Spotify, it just disappears. You know.
Yeah, it's a good point, and I just think that the reason I like to talk about it and I like to bring it up is that, you know, I spent hours and hours with him on the road, driving from gig to gig, you know, a lot of all over the United States and Europe and beyond, Germany. And we'd listen to music. That was our thing, man. And I would try to get him to listen to the cassettes. And he was kind of embarrassed of them. He truly, to me, you know, he was like, he always wanted them to be slicker and more accessible. But I hear what you're saying. There's a vulnerability there.
It's amazing though, listening to Daniel, and obviously that was our template. That's the thing that we were trying to be true to, was the Daniel songs. But probably what Daniel doesn't hear is when you're listening to him, you can hear all this arrangements happening in his head, you know, and there's little things he hums, and you know, what's the one? He's kind of like, don't let the sun go down your grievances. I mean, there's a massive audience in front of him at the end of it.
And don't forget to forgive and forget. And don't let the sun go down on your grievance. Don't let the sun go down on your grievance.
Don't let the sun go down on your grievance. Yeah, everybody!
Respect love of the heart over lust of the flesh. Sing it. Do yourself a favor. Become your own savior.
You know, this imaginary audience, and it's, you know, you can feel the church, you can feel the gospel choir, you can feel a lot of the arrangements, and obviously we knew he was a big Beatles fan, so you can hear where he's going, or what he's maybe dreaming of doing or something, you know.
Well, it's very true on that album, Yip Jump, because that's actually, you're spot on that one, because he was having to hide that. He had to do that album in secret almost in Dick's garage in Texas.
In the quiet, like trying not to wake anybody up. Kind of.
Right. And so, but you're right. I mean, that album it just explodes. And I don't think people realized what an amazing pianist he was. You probably being a very talented musician and doing all these arranging, and I mean, your album, I just can't say it enough. Like, even if you're not a Daniel Johnston fan, you've taken these songs to a whole nother level.
Yeah, I think, that's, obviously I very luckily got it as an independent record label. We got it to #1 in the first week of its release. So that was great. We had a lot of pre-orders, which was great. And actually, a lot of people don't know who Daniel Johnston is. And I have the great pleasure to say, well, that's the bonus feature of this record, And it is, you don't really, to enjoy the music, you don't really have to know about Daniel. The songs are so good, the songs are so good. And then for me to kind of, when people explain, who's Daniel Johnston? Well, I said, well, you're in for a treat there, You're in for a real treat, because it's such an incredible story, not just musically, but to me, he's kind of, he holds a torch for artists all over the world. I think it's kind of like, because I don't think there is a single artist who doesn't struggle, it is a struggle. It's kind of part of being an artist is the struggle. And that's what Daniel is constantly kind of talking about, really,
I was sinking deep in sin, far from Mountain Dew. I had problems out within, nothing that I could do. But the Mountain Dew came to me, and I drank it all up. Now I'm happy as can be, oh Mountain Dew. We drink Mountain Dew, we drink Mountain Dew. No thing better to do than to drink Mountain Dew. Yahoo! Mountain Dew.
We're going to keep, I think we'll just focus on side one. Any more questions about side one, and then we'll kind of maybe leave side two, because in my opinion, side two is a whole nother album.
Yeah,
in a way.
the R2 records, yeah.
It does. It feels like I've written
Terry
the blues.
Entertainer, I've just had that. That's mine.
Oh
now.
my God. Ain't no woman going to make a George Jones out of me. I mean,
fantastic.
I don't know,
yeah.
man.
Ain't no woman gonna make a George Jones out of me. No way.
If I were you, I would talk to your publicist and try to get this thing nominated for a Grammy.
I'm the whole shebang here. You're looking at the label,
You need to talk to yourself and get this thing on the Grammy list, because, man, I don't know.
To do that, you're going to have to help me out there, Don.
Well, I know that they showed his picture during the Grammys after he passed, and when we saw his picture up there outside of his house in Waller, I was like, because Daniel always wanted a Grammy. He always wanted a Grammy, and we jokingly said, "Oh, it'd be called Granny by the time he gets one." He thought he would get one in a rocking chair on his porch or something. So, but anyway, back to the record, and back to these songs, and back to the production, and you had mentioned the charts. So this thing is on your charts in Ireland, and it's
the national chart.
That's a big deal, man.
It is a big deal, yeah. It is. It's a very big deal, especially for an independent record label. I mean, I kind of, and even in the national charts, we knocked the Fontaines DC off the #1 slot, and the Fontaines DC are the hippest Irish band about now. They're an incredible band. I don't know if you know them, but. And in the national charts, we're above Tyler, the Creator, so it was a really big deal getting the record.
Tyler's a big deal.
Yeah, there's some great artists, but in independent, it's tough. It's tough work to kind of do it. I'm here a long time, and I started with Atlantic Records and with major labels, and I call that the price of an education. So I do know how to make records, and now it's very difficult to try and sell the things, but I. Well,
we're just getting warmed up. I think we're gonna at least speaking from from the Johnston group. I'm a member of the Johnston group, and I work very closely with Daniel's team, his brother and Tom and Donnie and Dexter. I mean, we have a ragtag, wonderful little team of people that want to honor and celebrate Daniel's legacy on many levels, because there's so many facets to it. But I guess as we just kind of wind it down, the thing that is so daunting for me as a listener, I am also a musician, a producer, and blah, blah, blah. And you keep mentioning that, being an artist is very hard, and we struggle, and we have all of these uphill battles, and Daniel did such a great job of poignantly and very, in a really great way, describing or sharing that experience. But for you to finish this record, after I listened to it all the way through the other day, and it just was so epic and so, like, it's a lot of work, Jerry. Like, how did you schedule? You've got a family. I mean, do you have a day job? I mean, talk to us a little bit about how did you make this amazing record? I mean, how long? When did you start it? I mean, just talk to us a little bit about just finishing something this epic is pretty amazing in its own right.
I mean, as I said, I haven't made a record in 15 years because since streaming services came on board, there hasn't been much point. It's too much work and not enough income. So I'm a full-time musician. I have been for the last 22 years. I was with a major record label, as I said, when I was quite young. I signed, was signed by Americana from Atlantic Records, who flew to Dublin and took us to his home in Turkey and signed the band. So we signed the biggest record deal in Ireland in 1990. And we toured. I've toured. And
that's Emotional Fish.
That was a band called An Emotional Fish, yes.
Yeah, so let's talk, make sure you bring that into context too.
So An Emotional Fish was basically, so I would have remembered, we played with Nirvana in Belgium once, and there were two bands before us, and 6 months later they were the biggest band in the world because we were on a bill with Sonic Youth and Nirvana. I think at the time Nirvana was. So I would have been aware of Daniel with Kurt wearing the T-shirt and who's this Daniel Johnston. So I would have had some awareness then. But then of course I saw the film The Devil and Daniel Johnston, and that really opened up who he was. But I'm a full-time musician. I gig, small theatres, and I mostly what I mostly make, I guess, a living from is running fringe stages in festivals and curating festivals and performing at them myself, and working with circus performers. So I've kind of managed just to survive the music business by just keep shifting. But the major label thing was tough work. You kind of, I never made much money. I kind of left there. I don't think fame was really what I ever really wanted. And obviously you signed such a big record deal and tour the world. Now, I really love touring. I enjoyed it. But then after 5 years or 7 years, I was exhausted. So I dropped out of music completely. Then when my first child was born in 23 years ago, I looked at her and I thought, well, I don't want to be coming back from a building site and, telling her I used to be a rock star, right? So I got back into music again, made a solo record. I very luckily made that a hit, followed it up. I've been touring a lot and followed it up with another record, and then ran away with the circus, basically. So I've only been doing singles. I did a Morphine track, actually, with Dana Colley, which was great. That was the only other kind of cover I did. And then when Daniel passed away in 2019, we released True Love Will Find You in the End, and that caught the attention of Tom Gimbel, and Tom sent me an email saying, hey, would you run this Hi How Are You Day in Dublin for us, and we're trying to make it a global thing, which I'm kind of very passionate about. I would love to see Hi How Are You Day be a global day for people to celebrate, talking about mental health issues and changing the whole thing, which it is changing. We are chipping away, I mean, you know, I think we pretty know that we wouldn't have had punk rock or any decent music or art without neurodivergency, you know? So like, so we're breaking away the stigma of things. We'd have no art whatsoever if it wasn't for, everybody's different. So we bring up that conversation, and that alone is a good reason to have a day, right? But this guy's music is just phenomenal, and like you say, how many songs have you got to pick from? I mean, I'm still hearing one. I heard one the other day, and I was like, "Whoa, what's that? I have to do that one," you know. So there's some. I mean, Speeding Motorcycle is another. I'm a big fan of. Never managed to get that on. I got that on this album.
Speeding motorcycle, speeding motorcycle, my heart. Ah, woo, yeah, woo.
There's so many. I mean, it just goes on and on. But you know, this has been a lot of work. As I said, we did True Love Will Find You in the end and Story of an Artist. And I always thought, you know, this guy has so many good songs. It would make a great album. So 2 years ago, after Hi How Are You Day, we went to the studio and I coughed up for 3 days in the studio, and great musicians. And we all just laid down these songs. And yeah, it was like, yeah, no, this is a great record. But then came the overdubs. You know, Cian Boylan, my co-producer, who's an extremely talented musician, said to me, you know, I can hear an orchestra on this. And I'm like, what, like a quartet? And he said, no, like a 14-piece orchestra. I was like, you know, how much is that going to cost? So
I know you will. Don't give up until true love will find you in the end.
Okay, I got to tell you a little something too, why I'm here and why I'm doing this too. So when Dan and I spent all those hours together, you know what it's like to be on tour with somebody, and we got to know each other on many levels. He always said his dream was he always wanted a fan club, and I think he said he belonged to the Monkees fan club when he was like a kid, like junior high or high school or something. Anyway, and I said, Daniel, I'll be the president of your fan club someday, you know. And I feel like I'm kind of, you know, the closest thing to a president of a fan club is having a podcast. And there's really not a lot of podcasts out there about Daniel, which is shocking. Like you have said, you know, you run into more people that don't know who Daniel is. And it kind of shocks us because we're like, how would you not know who Daniel is, right? So when I was saying about the heavy lifting, I truly, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I feel like I mean, this record, I hope it's going to do everything that you want it to do. But why it's important, I think, is that it's like, and I want to try to tie this in. I want to take my little ADHD brain and kind of roll it in. You use the word neurodivergent, and I went, oh my gosh, I love that we can have these conversations about neurodivergency. And you are exactly right, Mr. Fish. You are 100% correct that Daniel opened so many doors, and we could just go on and on about that. And you and I being fans, I mean, literally, we could just go blah, blah, blah. We could just go on and about all this stuff. But I just want to say that I want to talk about accessibility, and I want to kind of put a pin in this thing that we started to talk about a little bit earlier. And I want to tell you why I think this album is so great. And Dead Dog's Eyeball, the reason I think that's such an important record is not only was Kathy a good friend of Daniel's, but she kind of created that record. I think she says it's for her mother, because she knew that Daniel's songs, they might be good for somebody like you and me, and we can pop in that cassette and go, holy cow, this is the most raw, vulnerable. But for a lot of people, it's scary, and they're so homogenized. I mean, the Beatles are a perfect example of really heartfelt, amazing music, but it's almost perfection, right? And so I guess what I'm trying to kind of say here is that, so Kathy opened up the door with Dead Dog's Eyeball as far as accessibility. You have taken it, in my opinion, a whole nother level of orchestration and mood, like the moods that you're creating. Like, I hope you are going to make some music videos to these songs, because they really need to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's another, it's another kind of, I mean, I love making records, and this has been a real pleasure to making it. It's just I don't know how to make a video. I don't know. But I mean, I certainly have to open it up to anybody who wants to make a video of any of the songs, because as I said, we treated them as songs, I mean, they're just incredibly, I mean, we have a lot of random people come to the Hi How Are You Day gigs. They're all Daniel Johnston fans. They're often not our fans. They've just come to, they just see Daniel Johnston, right? It's to celebrate Daniel Johnston. But you get the feeling they're kind of going, you wonder, are we any good? So there were two guys at the last Hi How Are You Day, and I followed them out when they were left the show. I said, "How did you enjoy the show?" They were going, "Yeah, are you fans of me or MayKay?" And no, we'd never heard of you, but we'd heard of Daniel Johnston, and but it just goes to show he writes a really good pop song, and that's what I think this record shows you. It's when you take away the kind of feedback and the bad, a lot of the bad recordings, bad not being a great word for it, but the, I guess, unsophisticated lo-fi recordings of Daniel's music, it misses a lot of people. They don't really get it, whereas this is, they know it sounds beautiful, there's an orchestra on it, and all of a sudden they're going, wow, these words are incredible, the meaning and is incredible, so
well, I know Daniel would have loved this. I know.
Well, that means everything to me,
he would have been beaming. I know it, because I listened to almost every cover of Discovered Covered on the road with him. I won't go into the ones he liked and the ones he didn't like, because that's not fair. But Daniel was very discriminating, and there's a lot of myths out there about him. And back to that whole thing about him wanting to sound, if anything, Jerry, he might have been a little jealous of you, because he really wanted to have this sound of just like you were saying earlier, you were talking about it being in his head and this and that. He did try really hard to get that out. Like I've been talking with Jason Faulkner a lot lately. We're working on a collector's edition of Is and Always Was. And man, that's a whole nother story, about that psychedelic record and what Jason did. But Daniel was very specific about what he wanted done with producers. And, when he worked with Paul Leary, when he worked with Jason, and he worked with Brian Beattie, he wasn't like, oh, just go do your thing and we'll hear it later. Like he gave a lot of feedback and stuff. So I just want you to know that I think he would have been blown away, because I think you've just done, when we do part 2 of this, I think what I'll do is I'll get to finally, now that I have my vinyl, and I'll get to listen to the grooves, I'll be able to really experience it. We'll go a little bit deeper with we'll go with the songs and the sound, and maybe break down. You really are all over the place on this. It's rock and roll, it's rhythm and blues. I hear, man, I even feel a little Motown in some of it. I feel a bit of a wall of sound. Do you have any favorite producers that you grew up with that kind of influenced you on this record?
Well, I think I started making records in the 90s. I think it was the wrong time. The time to make records was in the 50s and the 60s, when they had the studios and the microphones. But at the end of the day, though, production, there's amazingly produced records, but they don't have any songs, and I think it's about the song. It actually does it. At the end of the day, if you can just, with your little ukulele or whatever, knock something like Sorry Entertainer out, and make it 2 minutes long. It doesn't matter if you're the greatest producer in the world. Very few people can do that. That's the real. That's what we envy about Daniel. I think, like you say, being so prolific and being able to kind of just almost kind of knock these ideas directly out of his being, without hesitation.
Always hoping the wind will blow me away again. I'm a loner. I'm a sorry entertainer. I'm a loner. I'm a sorry entertainer.
So it's really his honesty that I'm just in complete awe of, and I love performing the songs because of that, and his wit.
I do want to,
and his wit. It's funny, very funny.
I want to share something with you that maybe a little insight into something that I've been doing a deep dive on, and that's his notebooks. So I go through his notebooks almost every day on some level, and his notebooks are a lot like his songs. We're finding now, I don't know if you know this or not, but we're finding, hundreds and hundreds of songs, no different than sketches in a sketchbook. And what I find so interesting and so fascinating is not all musicians work like that. I never got to talk to him about this, and one of my regrets is I didn't realize how prolific he was until really, I knew a lot about him when we put out a book about Daniel in '99, and I put out the 3rd edition, I think in 2006. So I thought I knew a lot about Daniel when I stopped working with him in about 2006, and then now I'm back in. I've been back in for about 3 years now. Well, I went to the funeral and saw what Dick just needed support, and he needed family, and he needed people around him. He needed people around him, I think, that loved Daniel, but. Just realizing that we're in this weird spot. Like you've picked these great songs, and you've picked these wonderful songs, but like you were saying, like you might hear another 100, 200 songs you never even knew existed of Daniel's possibly for the remainder of your life. And it's like, for me, we're like, oh my goodness, when does it end? And that's almost part of the, I think that's the lesson, right? I guess what I'm kind of bringing it back around to you, as far as your song, you did all this work on Daniel's stuff, and it was kind of easy in some ways because the song was already written. But what is it about lyrically? Maybe talk a little bit as a musician and lyrically. Did you really pick these songs specifically because of their lyrics, and because they really mean? Or you would have written?
I just think, listening to you talking about Daniel, I'm in awe of that. It's like I think Daniel very earlier on, and I didn't know him personally. I'm just a fan from a distance, just a fellow musician and artist and fan. And I think he decided to be an artist very young, and he committed to it, and I think. I'm also an artist, but my commitment is obviously I've other, I have family, I've children, I've things that are in, I'm in my house now so they can hear me, but there's so much in the way, whereas I think Daniel just committed himself completely to being an artist, and I think that's rare. That's an extremely rare thing, and lyrically, do yourself a favor, become your own savior. I don't know why that's not a slogan. the end of the day, you are going to only save yourself. Saving yourself is saving the world, right? So it's just, there's so many. It's also like, what's one of my favorites? It's funny, but it's not funny, Do you know? It's just, We all know what that means. There's just a lovely wit in it, and it's just such a sad thing. He was a wordsmith. Incredible wordsmith. Yeah. On top of it, and I guess I'm Irish, and kind of, we've got people like Brendan B, and we have those people. So Daniel definitely fits into that category. He was incredible, and I'm really delighted that I'm meeting Irish people anyway that are like, oh, thank you so much for introducing me to this guy, Daniel Johnston, because they love the record, but now they're finding out, it's dreaming of Daniel. It's this thing,
Do you know about the characters that kind of followed him along the way?
I made it a point of not delving too deep into the stories, but staying into the songs. But I do love his art, yes, because I'm also a big comic art enthusiast. I do love comic art. So do you mean the characters? We have them depicted as tattoos on the body of the tattooed man there. Yeah. And I know there's just this big fight between good and evil, and that's the thing,
Absolutely. And there's a lot of friends of mine, we talk about him being our William Blake.
Yes. Every night and every morn some to misery are born. Every morn and every night some are born to sweet delight. Some are born to sweet delight, some are born to endless night. Yes. I think Blake is a good template for Daniel, all right.
I agree. Well, cool. Well, we're kind of I know it's very late there, and you're in Dublin.
I live on a mountain. I live where the last wolf in Ireland was killed on a mountain in the middle of nowhere. So we're broadbanded. We've only just got it recently. So, and I'm set up in the house because I actually have a studio across the road, but no broadband lives there.
Well, I definitely want to do a part 2. We'll let things kind of settle a little bit. I'm going to do everything I can in my power on our side of the fence to get this album out to as many people as possible, because it really is important, and I can say that with a lot of confidence because I am a fan, and it really just got me going, and we just got to keep. So let us know whatever we can do to help on that end, and then we'll put this together as soon as we can, so that we'll get it out there. I'm not going to release. This might be the first official podcast because I've got about 10 episodes that I haven't decided exactly how I want to distribute them, but because of this one, because the record is so fresh and it's alive. Your record is alive right now. I want to get on it.
And the other thing is they get so little exposure these days, but now I'm kind of, it's so wonderful, Don, that to have the support of you guys, because it just feels like it's validated now. I don't have to worry about, kind of, because they do disappear so quickly now. The attention span of people is so short at the moment. Records come out and then they're gone. But we're thinking of putting out for How Are You Day, Ain't No Woman Gonna Make a George Jones Out of Me, because it seems to be, everybody seems to be listening to it on Spotify. They seem to be really enjoying that one, There's a 70s TV show kind of thing going on as well.
My favorite.
In the album,
that's my favorite on the album.
Thanks, Don. Well, I think we're going to put that out in Ireland as well. But it'll be out there. I'd like to remix Sorry Entertainer as well. Try a few, because I think the instrumental, there's so much in there, and every musician had such a good time playing Sorry Entertainer.
I'm a sorry entertainer.
We had a Brazilian, a guy in London, a Brazilian percussionist, and he's gone crazy on it, but we couldn't use everything, so there's plenty of remixes to be had in there as well. So,
well, I wish you the absolute best of luck on it, and of course it does take a village to be, where Daniel's not a household name yet. He will be very soon. There's a lot of really exciting things happening in Daniel's world in the next several years that I'm not quite privy to say, but I would just say that just we got to keep punching Joe on this. We got, and I would strongly encourage you to maybe we can find you some animators or some video people, because once people will know what I'm talking. If you haven't heard the record yet. And I know that when you're done listening to the jibber jabber and you go and listen to the record, you're going to see what I mean, that it just doesn't end with this record. It's just not as simple as it just being a record. It's like
visual, yeah.
Oh my God! Like the fact that you're in the circus, like you're this ringleader of this record, like is not even a surprise to me. Like I don't. It's like I shouldn't even be surprised that you run a circus, right? Like
animation, I'm crazy about. I think that.
Yeah. We're gonna have to do some wonderful things, and then we're gonna do. We're working on this docu-series on Daniel too, so we'll have to get you in on that because we're gonna have a nice episode just about people, much shorter than what we get to do today and what we'll do for part 2, but we'll be able to like encompass and kind of zero in on you as a producer and kind of what you've done with Daniel's music. But anyway, my honor absolutely to be able to just finally connect with you.
It's great to connect,
Yeah, and I feel like we're Daniel brothers. I just feel like we both get it.
And then anytime you're in Dublin or wherever, anytime, and I'll have to get over to see you guys as well. Maybe South by Southwest I'll do a bit big of a trip to. It's on Paddy's Day as well.
There's so many opportunities for us to get you over here. We just gotta,
but even just, I don't always need something to happen at the end. I enjoy the adventure, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you ever want to come to Colorado too, oh my gosh, I love to bring people. Lori Allen comes, and her daughter lives in Denver. And so she pops down to see me in Manitou Springs every once in a while. And we're filming her for the docuseries. So we're a family, and we just gotta help each other out, and we gotta share what we're doing and all that. And I don't know how to, we'll have a lot of music, and we'll have a bunch of your music in this episode. So we'll give.
I mean, the Dreaming of Daniel is the album I really want everyone to hear. That's the thing.
Tell us as we close out here. Tell us what Dreaming of Daniel. What does that mean?
Originally I had the title Imagined because I knew Daniel was such a John Lennon fan. Like I had Imagined with the D separately, like Imagine D, Imagined.
Okay.
And that kind of wore off, and I just thought, basically that's what I've been doing for the last 5 years, is dreaming of Daniel, So I think it's really kind of, we hope anyway, it's very much a love letter. And it is all done from the heart and a labor of love, and I'm very 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 honored that you like it, and love. Oh, I love this record. I can't wait to put it on the stylist. Ricardo's artwork on the cover, it's a different thing inside. It's kind of got a much softer interior, I think, so it's got this hard skin and a soft interior, which I think is possibly how Daniel was too,
Absolutely. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to part 2. And we'll definitely talk about Hi, How Are You Day Night, because we're all going to be doing concerts all over the country on that night. I'll be doing something in Indianapolis, apparently, and you'll be doing your thing in Dublin. So we'll try to figure out ways we can connect as well.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? Kind of get them all together, because I would love to see it, like, satellites all over the world. I think that'd be great.
All right. Well, I'll let you get back to you and yours, and thanks again for everything. And I look forward to part 2.
Thank you, Don. See you later.
Thanks, Jerry. Bye-bye.
Bloody Rainbow, a Daniel Johnston pod and videocast. Hosted by Don Godey. Produced by Fly Eye Media and Illuminati Studios. Art direction by Don Godey. Animations and video magic by Justin Kovach. Bloody Rainbow image by Daniel Johnston. Logo eyes by Nicholas Baronic. Jerryfish imagery and graphics used with permission. Bloody Rainbow theme song by Kramer. Don Godey's Daniel Johnston wardrobe supplied by Supreme, Vans, and HiHoWareYou.com. Unauthorized sponsorships by Mountain Dew, Vans, and Supreme. All Daniel Johnston music, graphics, and imagery used with permission from the Daniel Johnston Trust. Copyright 2025. Special thanks to Dick Johnson for being a friend, brother, mentor, and fearless leader.
Systematic routine life, all alone and lonely at night.